Sometimes, no matter how much we try to stay safe, something unexpected can still come our way and hurt us. It's a harsh reality that we live in a world full of unpredictable dangers that can strike without warning. Today, we're going to delve into the tragic story of a newlywed couple in Shandong province, China. This is the story of the Shandong Newlywed Murders. It was nearly evening when police dogs and officers surrounded a house in Fei County, Shandong. They had been called by a distressed grandmother looking for her son and her daughter-in-law, who had gone missing earlier that day. The dogs led the officers toward a small cave not far from the house. As they approached the cave, the dogs detected the smell of blood in the fields. The officers followed a trail of bloodstains to the cave's entrance, where they peered inside to see if anyone was hurt. However, they were met with an unusual sight. A significant number of corn stalks had been placed to conceal something. After pushing back the stalks, they discovered the bodies of a man and a woman. The family was devastated by the discovery. The officers removed the bodies from the cave. Forensic identification revealed that Li Hong, the wife, had died from suffocation. Despite being 3 months pregnant, there were indications of sexual abuse. The husband, Sun Gang, had suffered 4 deadly wounds to his chest, head, and torso. Suffocation was also determined to be the cause of his death. Let's rewind a bit to understand what led to this search and gruesome discovery. On the morning of May 15, 2013, the elderly lady, Liu Danyang, was working in her kitchen. Her daughter-in-law, Li Hong, and son, Sun Gang, had recently tied the knot and were a perfect match. That day, Liu Danyang invited the couple to treat them to a nice home-cooked meal and called to let them know it was ready. When her call wasn't picked up, Liu Danyang didn't think much of it and waited a bit longer. She called again, but there was still no answer, and she began to feel uneasy. As the clock approached 11 a.m., she called once more, this time feeling annoyed when her call wasn't answered again. Then it hit her. The phone was either turned off or out of service, not just ignored. Worried, the old lady made her way to the newlyweds' house to see what was going on. Just a few meters away from the couple's residence, Liu Danyang noticed that the door was slightly open. She entered the home and called out their names, but nobody answered. She checked the bedroom, thinking the couple might still be sleeping. Surprisingly, the bed was empty, and there were no signs of conflict. It was clean and tidy. At that moment, Liu Danyang began to sense something strange. Moreover, since her arrival, the couple's puppy had not barked at all. The dog usually greeted her joyfully, but now it was nowhere to be seen. She headed into the courtyard to look for the dog. There she found it, the poor puppy's crushed and bleeding body. She knew something was terribly wrong when this set off all the warning signs in her mind. Liu Danyang initially tried to convince herself that the couple must have had a fight, with her daughter-in-law leaving for her family and her son pursuing her. She tried to believe everything was fine, but the odd circumstances overwhelmed her. She quickly decided to call the police and report the couple missing. The police arrived 10 minutes later to investigate. It didn't take long for the police to realize this was a serious situation. They found blood stains on the interior backs of mattresses, pillows, and floors. One of the house's windows had its safety bars broken and twisted back, creating a space big enough for someone to squeeze through. The recently installed security cameras were inactive. Their cords were all cut. Considering the leftover food on the dining table, it was clear whoever did this had plenty of time. So who were Sun Gang and Li Hong? They were ordinary people who shared a love for food. Sun Gang was a chef, and Li Hong owned a food stall. Their wedding dinner was beautifully designed, and the wedding took place in Linyi, Fei County, Shandong Province. With joyful smiles, they danced together, and their love for each other was evident. Despite their lack of wealth, Sun Gang and Li Hong had built a wonderful life together. Their modest home was tucked away in a verdant setting, near a lovely rice field. Even though the house was a bit remote, they fully enjoyed life in the beautiful surroundings. As dusk fell and rural darkness covered the area, their home became increasingly quiet and desolate. They chose to construct a tall fence around their house for added safety. When this shocking tragedy occurred, the villagers were outraged. They gathered in front of the couple's house, weeping for the lost lives. It was especially incomprehensible because Leon was known to be pregnant at the time of the murder. They all urged the police to solve the case and bring justice to the poor couple who had just started their lives together. The police put a great deal of time and effort into solving this case over the next few days. As officers conducted a preliminary search of the nearby river, 3 plastic bags were pulled out of the water. The bags largely contained empty drink bottles and other garbage. However, among the rubbish, they found the marriage license of the newlywed couple. There was also a pair of men's trousers. In an attempt to uncover more information, the officers looked into the pockets of the pair of jeans found in the bag. They focused on one pocket because it contained a subsistence allowance card issued for people who need welfare payments from the government to help cover their basic living costs. The ID on the card belonged to a man who lived a few kilometers away. Could this be the killer they were looking for? There was no time to lose. They went to the man's house for more information. The man's name was Fu Daguang, a 70-year-old living a not-so-well-off life. The police questioned him and searched his house, but found little to no evidence linking him to the case. More notably, Fu Daguang was in poor health and mostly bedridden, making it impossible for him to commit such a crime. That's when the police's attention shifted to Fu Daguang's son, Fu Gang. What was the link between the card and Fu Gang? Due to poor living conditions, Fu Daguang had to use a low-security card to receive a 55 yuan subsidy per month. It turned out that Fu Gang had been using his father's card for personal expenses, like internet cafes. This made the police focus on Fu Gang as a potential suspect. Meanwhile, another police team was investigating by looking through CCTV footage of ATM machines because they realized the victims' cards were taken. On the night of the incident, around 11,000 yuan was withdrawn using the card. The eerie and infuriating footage showed a young man taking money from an ATM while giggling and smiling. Though it wasn't Fu Gang, it indicated others were involved. The 2 police teams held a meeting to compile all the information they had learned so far. They soon identified the man in the ATM footage as Zhang Xuejun. However, they realized that Zhang Xuejun and Fu Gang had booked a bus ticket to Western China Province, approximately 1,600 kilometers away from Shandong. The police needed to act quickly to catch them. The director of the Public Security Bureau and the political commissar of the Criminal Investigation Detachment were among the nearly 30 members of the arresting squad. They all headed toward the bus with great determination and soon came to a stop in Xintai County. To avoid alerting both the public and the suspects, some of the investigators boarded the bus in disguise. Despite the police's efforts to blend in, the suspects seemed to sense something was wrong from the start. Everything was quiet until someone tried to climb out of the bus window. Chaos ensued as the police realized there were 3 people attempting to escape, not just 2. The police moved swiftly to apprehend all 3 suspects. Suddenly, a man stood up with a knife and tried to attack the officers. Fortunately, the police were able to subdue him by striking his arms with a baton, causing him to drop the weapon. This man was also taken into custody along with the other 3 suspects, revealing him as part of the criminal group. The 4 suspects were Fu Gang, Zhang Xuejun, Yang Jiying, and Zhao Feng, aged between 17 and 26. The police launched a rigorous interrogation, eventually uncovering their motives for the crime. You might be wondering what drove these people to commit such a horrible act. According to Zhang Xuejun, he had initially robbed the house of Sun Gang and Li Hong sometime before the murder. During that robbery, he saw a wedding picture of the couple and was captivated by Li Hong's beauty. But at that time, he couldn't do anything, so he just fled with what he found in the house. Later, at a wedding of Zhao Feng's older brother, Zhang met the other 3 suspects. Their criminal minds connected well, and Zhang told them about the house with a beautiful woman, suggesting they rob it and have a taste of her. Agreeing to the heinous idea, the 4 arrived in Fei County on the afternoon of March 14, 2013. They took a tricycle and stopped a distance from the couple's home to observe and plan. At 6 p.m., when the rural area was dark and quiet, they decided to strike. They saw Li Hong and Sun Gang leave, so they took the opportunity to break in and steal valuables, including some knives. They also destroyed the CCTV cameras to cover their tracks. An hour later, they heard a vehicle approaching the house. They hid inside, near the entrance, to ambush the homeowners. Li Hong was the first to enter and was immediately attacked. Her scream alerted Sun Gang, who ran in to help his wife, only to be beaten and handcuffed. He begged the intruders not to harm his pregnant wife, but his pleas were ignored, as they had already decided what they're going to do. Li Hong tried to push them back, but what could a poor pregnant woman do against 4 men? Some reports stated that Sun Gang was forced to watch from the side as the 4 men sexually assaulted his wife. No matter how much he struggled to break free, it was in vain. He could only cry along with his wife and beg the men to stop. The rage and pain inside his heart was too much to bear that he eventually fainted. This did not stop the men, though. They continued to abuse Li Hong in turns for a total of 8 hours. The criminals weren't satisfied with just being violent to the couple. They went even further by forcing the husband to cook a meal for them. The table was filled with all sorts of fancy dishes and wines, creating a sickening contrast to the horror that happened around them. The husband had to listen to the sounds of his wife being violated while he prepared their food. The murderers enjoyed the meal with smiles on their faces, showing just how twisted and evil they were. They took pleasure in the pain and suffering of innocent people, acting like ruthless demons who had lost all sense of humanity. After they were done with their vile acts, the murderers looted the couple's home. They tore up photos, destroying precious memories, and scattered the pieces everywhere. They even killed the couple's pet dog, showing no mercy at all. It is said that Fu Gang tortured the woman by piercing her skin with toothpicks and burning her with cigarettes. The story goes that around 3 a.m., after the 4 men were done with Li Hong, they threw her into the room where her husband was held. Li Hong panicked upon seeing blood on Sun Gang, but he was alive and she stumbled into him. The two shared tearful words, and Sun Gang repeatedly comforted his wife, who felt utterly destroyed by the disgusting act inflicted upon her. Unbeknownst to them, all 4 men already had a plan in place. They intended to kill the couple. They then took Sun Gang to another room, and Li Hong cried, wondering what was going to happen. The men tied a chain around Sun Gang's neck and covered his head with a plastic bag, suffocating him to death. When Li Hong learned about her husband's fate, she cried loudly and went limp. The men then dragged the poor woman, who no longer had the energy to resist, to the same room and suffocated her with a plastic bag. The bodies were placed in a cave canal not far away and covered with corn stalks. After that, the 4 men worked all night to clean the house, replace the bedding, and throw the items they used into the river. They took separate cars and fled the scene before daybreak. Zhang Xuejun closed his story with 4 degenerate words: "She looked too beautiful." The trial in 2016 charged Zhang Xuejun, Wang Jiying, Fu Gang, and Zhao Feng with burglary, sexual assault, and intentional murder. The first 3 men, being adults in their 20s, received the death sentence. Zhao Feng, who was a minor, was initially sentenced to life imprisonment, which was later reduced to 22 years in 2019 due to good behavior. On June 22, 2016, all adult perpetrators were executed. Not long after the case, the state upgraded the penalties for minor offenders. On December 26, 2020, the 13th National People's Congress Standing Committee approved changes to the People's Republic of China's criminal law. According to the new law, if a child aged 12 or 14 or older commits a crime involving intentional homicide or injury, kills someone, or causes serious harm by especially cruel means resulting in serious disability, and the circumstances are heinous with the prosecution's approval from the Supreme People's Court, the child will be held criminally liable. This case has rightfully outraged the entire nation. Li Hong and Sun Gang did nothing wrong and were simply living their lives as a new couple, expecting a child to join their family. Their lives were brutally taken away by monsters devoid of any humanity. We stand in solidarity with their families and loved ones, mourning this horrific loss. May the souls of Li Hong and Sun Gang rest in peace, and may those who love them find the strength to heal from all the wounds. That's all for today. Thanks for watching.